I'm Kevin Michalowski, Executive Editor of Concealed Carry Magazine and Director of Content for the United States Concealed Carry Association. I'd like to invite you to watch this next episode of The Proving Ground, where we talk about safety in a campground. And I'm here with my friend Pete Vasquez. Pete, we've known each other 12, 13 years now when I first started out at the Sheriff's Department.
At least that, just a bright-eyed kid when you came on.
Yeah, and you were the firearms trainer, and you did the scenario-based training for us when we were out there, all of us rookies moving around the reserve unit and things like that. What did you see as we went through this first scenario? What were you looking for when people were trying to defend themselves at a campsite?
Well, you look for what they should do as compared to what they're actually doing. Especially civilians, when you're training civilians in scenario-based training, you don't know them as well as you know the guys that you work with every day.
Yeah.
So they're kind of unknown. So you're looking to make sure that that they're safe, everything stays safe, because you never know if somebody's going to go off the deep end and start going hands-on when that's not what you want. And then you look for the techniques that they use, and then all the normal safety things, and make sure if they do present a weapon that they still have a good grip and all of that type of basic fundamental stuff. This scenario, we wanted to make sure that they were aware of first aid, and so we walked them through some of that too.
Yeah, and we like to say that the role players drive this scenario. We want the role players to get the trainees to do something in this scenario. So as we brought in our role players this time, we just wanted to see how close they would let them get. And in that situation, we started watching controlling of distance. You know, that's what we talk about in the law enforcement setting, is we need to control distance. And that kind of slipped away a little bit on what was happening here.
Absolutely, it did. We had really good role players. They understood what we wanted to get out of the trainees. So they worked it perfectly. It was more of an extended scenario than what we're used to doing, but we kind of let it go on because we weren't quite sure what our female trainee was going to do. And there was just a wealth of mistakes.
Yeah, well,
or things they could have done better, I guess, is a better way to put it.
Where we can help them to improve.
Yeah.
And that's actually what we want people to do. We want people to understand scenario-based training is an opportunity to improve, and you don't get to improve if you don't make some mistakes. So there's going to be some holes in what people are doing. And I think our trainees said it best. They didn't realize how intense this would get. They knew it was a scenario, but they were acting as if they were really under stress.
Yeah, that's one of the best things about scenario training, is that you can bump up that discomfort level and the stress and get their heart rate going. And what you normally do and what we did in this one, you kind of give them a fake pass by, and they think that, oh, it's starting now, and then it doesn't. And then the next role players come in, and they were actually able to calm them down. They're just talking, chit-chatting with them, and calm the situation down. All of a sudden, it ramped up again. And that's how real life is. You don't know what's happening. Something out of the ordinary happens. Oh, okay, you think you know what's going on, and then boom, you're in trouble.
And we like to give them that bait, I guess, out front, because everybody coming into the proving ground knows sooner or later something is going to happen. So they're kind of expecting that something bad is going to happen, and they'll have to deal with it. And quite frankly, to give it to the viewers, to give the training to the people who are watching, we have to make sure that something happens. We have to escalate the situation to get people to react. So what did you think about Scott hiding the gun behind his back?
It wasn't good.
Be honest.
It wasn't good. The bad guy, our role player, he saw the weapon. He acknowledged to Scott that there was a gun, but instead of bringing it out where he could use it and use it to talk the bad guy into obeying him or listening to him, he just kept it behind his back and kept trying to negotiate with a guy with a knife.
Yeah.
When he could have presented the weapon and started shouting commands. Make him do what you need him to do.
Yeah, I think at that point in any sort of life or death situation, when one weapon is out, the other weapon, the defensive weapon, needs to come out and be ready to be brought into play. And Scott, he talked about not wanting to shoot somebody just to save his RV. He didn't feel like he was in a life or death situation. a lot of people don't understand how dangerous it is when a knife is that close to you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
People can close that gap before you can even react.
Yeah, and I've told people many times, I'm much more afraid of someone coming at me with a knife than I am of someone coming at me with a gun. That knife never runs out of ammo, and there's really no way to get it away from them without substantial knife fighting training, which is something I just haven't devoted time to do.
And even if you have that training, I've had some knife fight training, you get cut. You're going to get cut, but you have to be able to fight through that pain and to dominate that fight.
Which brings us right into the first aid training. We had to talk about that because at that range and at that distance and with those weapons, people need to understand that this is a life or death fight. Somebody's going to get hurt, and you're going to need to be able to stop the bleeding, start the breathing, make sure all of that stuff works.
Absolutely, but the other thing is that it's at a campground. You're out in the middle of nowhere on purpose, and cell phone coverage isn't usually that great. So somebody chops part of their foot off trying to split firewood for the campfire. That same training and the same techniques apply for a traumatic wound like that.
Yeah, especially in a camping situation, you're probably going to be using your trauma kit, your first aid kit, much more often in an accidental type injury scenario rather than using it in a fight situation. But you want to have the skills, you want to have the training, and you certainly need to have the material to stop the bleeding and make sure that you can get somebody help or stabilize them till help gets here.
Right. You have to maintain that training. You have to be familiar with where you store it, let everybody else know where you store that equipment, and then every once in a while pull it out to make sure everything is still in there and that you know where it is, and so that when you do have to use it, you don't have to stop and think about, oh, where do I go to get it? And oh my gosh, it's missing what we need. Now what are we going to do?
Yeah, and I think that when people are out on a camping trip, they're out to have fun. This safety portion of this, and I'm not even going to say self-defense, the safety portion of the camping trip probably falls secondary on people's minds when they're out. Yeah, I'm just going to go out to the campsite and have a good time. But, you've been a law enforcement officer, what, 23 years you were involved? How many times were you out to the campgrounds? I mean, I worked at the campgrounds out here a lot. How many times were we responding out to the campgrounds?
Well, and you would work at specific campgrounds. When I was working as a patrol, I had to hit them all. I was, there were nights that I would hit 3 of the major campgrounds because something went down at all of them. Because people go there to have fun. Some people's idea of fun is way different than yours or I.
And I can remember being assigned to specific campgrounds because people were having fun out there. Well,
because we were getting called there too often.
The campground will remain nameless, but we had to be there, for situations just like that. What else should people think about when they're out on the road, when they're traveling in an RV and they want to protect themselves?
Well, you should understand what the rules are for where you can and can't carry, concealed or open, or how are you going to do it? How are you going to transport your weapon as you're driving? Are you going to have it on you? Are you going to have it secured in a safe, in your trailer or in the camper or whatever you're using? Or do you want to keep it in your vehicle? Like when I go camping, we plop our camper down and the truck gets moved away. So where are you going to store things, and how are you going to store them, and how do you access that? Do you rely on knowing where the key is all the time, or do you get the biometric or code type gun safes to use?
And there's a lot of those discussions that need to be had before you hit the road. These are things that you need to think about before you're out there, because like you said, maybe you keep your gun in a gun safe and you get 2 states away and the key's back at home, and then you're wishing you had the biometric safe or the safe with the numbers on the side or something like that. And preparing for this, I mean, a trip across many states, you've got state laws that are different everywhere you go. And here in Wisconsin, I don't think any of the surrounding states honor our Wisconsin concealed carry permit. I know Minnesota doesn't, I know Illinois doesn't, so we have to properly transport those weapons where we're going. And then if we're going to a private campground, we better know the rules before we pull in there.
Right, because it is private property. There's some rules that, say that you're renting it, so it's yours for that time. But they always reserve the right to eject people. And it's, it's their campground. And if you're out carrying and you think, hey, I rented this is mine. Well, great, you can do that. But the campground owner, if he gets upset or if the people around you get upset, they can eject you from the campground.
Yeah,
So
did you read the fine print on your rental agreement, you know, for your campsite when you get out there? Pete, let's talk a little bit about defending yourself inside a camper or, you know, honestly, any small place. This could be a hallway in an apartment building or something like that. When you're in a confined space and you're dealing with an aggressor, what's going to be the key to making sure you survive that fight, you come out, you prevail?
Well, the first thing you have to do is drop your center of gravity, because usually the first guy to trip over something is the guy that loses the fight.
Yeah.
So you want to get a good solid base, but then you're going to have to fight and fight hard for as long as you possibly can. It's like any other fight that you. I realize a cop with my experience and training has been in a few more fights than the average person.
Right.
But they're all the same.
Yeah.
Everybody gets tired, and the first guy to get exhausted also loses the fight.
Yeah.
So you have to understand your own weaknesses and your strengths. If you know your legs are strong, but you don't have very strong arms, you know, start throwing the kicks. Start, you know, instead of punches.
Yeah.
And conserve your energy.
I like to tell people that, you know, self-defense is basically causing enough dysfunction in your attacker that you can escape safely. If you can fight your way to the door, get out. Gives you a few more options when you're out there, when you're dealing with something like that.
Yeah, the more room you have, the more options you have.
Yeah. And nothing inside an RV or a camper or even a mobile home, for that matter, is really going to serve as effective cover. It's not going to stop bullets. So in that situation, one, know that if your attacker is armed with a firearm, those bullets are going to come through the wall and get you. But if you're armed with a firearm and he's not, your bullets are going to be able to go through the wall and get to him too. So
absolutely,
we want to have target acquisition, but you know, at the same time, you know, if you can shoot him through one of those screens or something like that, go ahead and make sure that you're putting rounds on target.
As long as you can see him.
Yeah.
You know, you know he's coming after you. Take that shot.
Yeah. So coming out of a fight like this, let's get back to the first aid issue. We're talking about what people should have in a trauma kit or a trauma pack. How did you like that stretch, wrap, and tuck tourniquet that we had in there?
I like that a lot because the instructions were right on there. And even if you take the training, a lot of people don't stay current with it. They don't review it. But that printing on there is bold enough and explained well enough that you would actually get a refresher course as you're applying it, which I think would help a lot.
Yeah, the only downside I see with that tourniquet in that trauma kit is that it's not going to be something you're going to put on one-handed on your own arm.
Yeah.
But you know, there is another tourniquet in that trauma kit that we provide that utilizes a one-hand operation or something like that. But I love the printing on there. You know, stretch this thing till it looks like a square, and that's going to be the right tension to help stop that bleeding. You know, when you get it above there and point. There's also gauze in there. There's some compress dressings and things like that. What would we talk to other people about if there's going to do something that you make yourself? I know a chest seal. We can make that out of a credit card or a driver's license and some duct tape. But you need to have all that stuff, and you need to have that knowledge before you start.
Right, and that's where the training comes in. You know, the CPR training, good start, but they don't go in depth. On wounds. You actually have to search out that type of training. Yeah. And to know what you can use as an improvised, say, tourniquet, as compared to if you don't have a real made specifically for that injury tourniquet.
Yeah, and knowing that if you choose the wrong thing, you can do more damage. So we really want people to get the right first aid training. What we always tell people is we want to stop the bleeding and start the breathing, you know, but there's a little bit more to it than that when you're putting stuff together.
Yeah, they don't realize that if you use an extension cord or a bungee cord, it actually cuts into the tissue and damages the tissue instead of just stopping.
Rather than squeezing off the arterial bleed or something like that. So, Pete, I really want to thank you for being here. It's great to be working with you again. Are you going to be with us for the live training broadcast?
Absolutely.
All right, folks. I want you to scroll down now and sign up for that live training broadcast. Of course, we're going to be giving away some free guns, and we're going to give you a lot more information about how to defend yourself, not only at campsites, but anywhere you go. Thanks for watching.